How are you? Hi, Divya.
Hi, Pushkar. Hi, Sandeep.
Great.
Good to have you, Divya, Sandeep.
Great. I hope you're doing well. So this is going to be a very interesting session. Maybe before we start off, Pushkar, we could probably do a round of introductions, and then Divya can take the baton and introduce herself. So Pushkar is my main partner in crime. He works with a lot of entrepreneurs in terms of helping them raise institutional capital, especially the first-time entrepreneurs. Runs Tremis Capital, and he's also better known as a major LinkedIn influencers, calling a spade. And it's pleasurable to have him on podcast so that we can say things in a very unfiltered, unadulterated fashion. Thanks, Pushkar.
My pleasure. But Sandeep, you have to introduce yourself also. You are the star.
I actually thought that you would do an introduction about me.
Well, after calling the spade a spade introduction, you have to match that.
No, so maybe I can just give a crack. So my name is Sandeep. I focus on helping companies from a go-to-market standpoint, mostly from seed to Series B. And through this journey, I also work with entrepreneurs as an investor, operating partner to look at helping them raise capital and, more importantly, help them scale the business in international markets. That's a quick gist about me.
Awesome.
So why don't we take it to the star of our show today? Divya, a brief background about yourself will be great. So the audience listening in.
Right, so I'll start with what I do currently. I work for the Mayor of London's office in India, sitting out of Bangalore, taking care of the South and East. And prior to working for London and Partners and working with London and Partners, I ran my own startup. It was in the pet space. And prior to that, I worked with some edtech companies. Moving slightly back into a previous life almost now, I used to swim for the country. So I used to be a national
Wow.
swimmer, training 10 hours a day. So yeah, it's like I've lived two lives at least.
Wow.
Great.
That's crazy.
Um, so jumping in, you have been with London and Partners for quite a while right now, but can you just elaborate in what does London and Partners do? What do they stand for? What is your vision?
Right. So London and Partners is the Mayor of London's office, like I mentioned, that helps and supports companies predominantly from, say, India setting up in the UK and then support UK based companies or London based companies expand into India. It was very interesting what we saw as India got more and more popular, more countries and more city partners now have a presence in this market, right? But London's been here for quite a while. We started our Mumbai office 7 years ago. Um, we have teams across the world. So London has very nicely mapped out countries and cities where they see the most amount of inflow of trade and investment. So we have offices across the US, in Canada. We have offices in three cities in China, a couple of spots across the Europes, and in Bangalore, Mumbai, and Delhi, because that's what we've mapped to see most amount of trade inflow and outflow going to and from London. And predominantly, that's what we do. We're London government supporting investment into London. Our services are free, bespoke based on what the founder needs. And we work with them for a period of 2, 3 years to get them a space and call home London if that's what they wish to do.
Wow. So is this a government agency, London Partners, or is it like a private body supported by Mayor of London? How
No,
does it
good
work?
question. Good question, Pushkar. So it's what it's what I would call a quasi-government. Half our funding comes from the Mayor of London's office. Half
Hmm.
of funding comes from a network of commercial partners. Therefore, the name London and Partners, it does
Mhm.
sound like a law firm, and I get that a lot,
Or a consulting firm?
or a consulting firm, but
Yeah.
it's
Right.
not. I
Right.
mean, the partner's name is a little lawyer ish in its demeanor, but the partners is a commercial network of partners that
Okay.
we raise revenue from that will then add on to support our infringing activities. So, for example, if a company that's looking at the UK faces some challenges with visa, let's say they want to get people to move or they want to move
Hmm.
family, and they said, yeah, I'm struggling with this. I'll put them on to an immigration lawyer, right? So that is our commercial partner network. Or if they want space, or if they want moving services, we have vetted and impaneled a whole range of commercial partners that will support this FDI endeavor, because we are not experts in every field that a company might require.
Got it. Got it. Awesome.
Yep. So it's actually interesting. I mean, maybe I'll segue into the next question, but I've had two instances in portfolio companies of mine who actually uprooted themselves. Their engineering teams are here, but they
Mhm.
uprooted themselves and moved to London. And I was understanding why they moved to London. So I'm kind of realizing that London has sort of become a really big tech hub in the last decade or so. So I just wanted to know, why is that London, over probably the last decade or so, has become a preferred tech hub, and it's not just for, say, fintechs, because we all know that London is a huge banking hub in the
Right.
world,
Right.
right? So, but other than that, I mean, you've got deep tech entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs in life sciences, health tech. A lot of those guys are looking at London in a very serious fashion. So, I want to ask Divya in terms of how has London modeled itself?
So, very good question in this tech aid, and this is a nice term I learned. So, everybody is now using the term tech aid, right? So, definitely the same for London. It's interesting to see. So, 6 years back, when I started this role, and this is a fact not many people will know. Of course, US was the largest investor in London, followed very closely by China.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Over the last 2 years, India is the largest investor in London.
Wow.
2 years running, which is saying a lot, right? So people don't really understand that this is the magnitude of Indian investment going into London. Now we have sector focuses, and we work with a very niche few sectors, which hopefully in conversation we can highlight. But just in those sectors, and just from India, from March this year, there have been 22 projects that have landed, right? Predominantly in the tech space. So we're seeing huge amounts of investment, definitely doubling numbers from 2-3 years ago.
Wow. But why are Indians finding London so exciting? What's the biggest reason, in your opinion?
Um, you know, the 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 bridges were made with schooling, and we love students to come study in London, or any country would love that, because it just means their associations are developed, and then those are the kids that then grow up and come as founders to the ecosystem, right? So the India UK bridge is a very old bridge, point number one, right? India is the largest diaspora in the UK, right? Every other shop, every other retail, every other tech business, you will find a lot of Indians in the UK. And I think these bridges were made many, many years ago, much before the decade, so to speak, right? Um, we see a lot of investors now moving in, because I think the ones that have global aspiration understand London's strategic location in terms of its time zone, right? So if I put a nice office in London, I can cater to US and China and India all in my working 8-hour slot, and I'm not bending over backwards to do night shifts and such, right? Also, I think companies that have global aspirations make their first stop to be London, because then it's easier to do BD and business development on both sides of the pond. Also, given that there is so many decision makers, you can do 5 great meetings in London, because all your global HQs are there, which is saying much more than what Australia or a US or anyone else can offer. They're not sitting on this landmine of HQ decision makers, so to speak, right? So I think, yeah, that's some of the.
Yeah, I think the other thing is also the legal system, right? A
Yeah.
lot of companies, global companies, MNCs, when they do large contracts, and especially in emerging markets, the arbitration courts are normally London.
Yeah.
So you would have seen that in a lot of cases, and even in India. So whether it is, if I were to just call out, maybe the Tata Docomo, maybe the Tata with the Docomo guys,
Yeah.
the arbitration was in the UK. So I think London, for that matter, has got that safety net of a very solid legal system that actually moves quite quickly.
Yeah, and even two different countries, and if they are in conflict with each other, they can cross at London and here in court of law in London, right? I mean, that's amazingly powerful. But yes, our legal systems are are mimicking each other. The schooling systems, there's a long-standing joke, the cricket curry Commonwealth, so there's a lot of similarities we share anyway as a market. Not to mention its proximity to India, right? I mean, US is great and people travel, and Australia is great and people travel, but I think you have so many direct flights now, and there are more and more flights mapping out, right? Virgin Atlantic few months ago launched their direct Bangalore to London, right? Before that, it was just the British Airways and Air India was going in and out, and now Virgin's like, yes, this is a market we should tap. So I think everyone's seeing the potential of India and capturing this proximity that they have.
Vivek, you could share some of the numbers from a funding standpoint, from an FDI standpoint that's come in over the last couple of years? Because, Pushkar, we've all been hearing, right? Post-pandemic, I think India had 2021, we had about 40 billion plus of that probably reduced to probably 21, 22 billion in 23. But London has got some staggering numbers as well. Even in terms of the number of unicorns, if I remember, when I was listening to the deputy mayor speak in Dubai, the number of unicorns you have just in London is quite a large number.
Yeah, 216 unicorns in London. Of course, some we know that of Revolut and Deliveroo, and we know some of these guys, and they now have an Indian presence. So I think in the light of slowdown of global VC funding, while the UK raised and saw 31 billion go in, 20 of that was in London alone.
Wow.
Right. So that little city, and you know how small London is, right? And that little city does quite a lot of work with VCs and with startups. You have the likes of Sequoia and 16Z, we were talking.
Yeah, Andreessen Horowitz,
setting up their funds in the UK, the accelerator VC support system, Smart Capital. I like what you asked about Smart Capital earlier. All the systems are in place for companies to move.
SoftBank.
Yeah.
SoftBank is another example, Pushkar. SoftBank have their main HQ in London. I think it's one of the reasons what Divya mentioned, because they've got investments all across the world. And London would be an ideal sort of base to kind of manage teams, etc. So I was probably a little bit, but another reason why founders should sort of look at London is the fact that you can raise capital, you can scale up a business which is global, and from an acquisition standpoint, you already have all the big boys in the same area. Is again a point of interest, right? So, for example, you're building something in fintech, you're building something in fashion tech. The potential guys that you would want to sell your business to, the main corporate development teams and the HQs and the CEOs are actually based in London.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is why we see so much interest, right? So every company, look, Indians are, it's a relationship-driven market. It's a cost-sensitive market. When a founder is thinking of expansion into London, they are keeping costs in mind, right? And we all know conversion rates, and we know how they're moving really quickly. But they see value in having sales teams sitting out of London, one, because they know having a local presence means they can raise funds, right? Having a local presence and a guy with some experience in the market who has his foot in the door means that he can do 5 good meetings with decision makers, right? No other global ecosystem offers you that in today's day and age, where you can do that level of selling. You have to be where your customers are at, and London is that place, right? So we know a lot of sales offices, a lot of large corporates of ours, right? I was talking to Sandeep earlier, and we were talking about some of the companies we have supported. There's this. Have you heard of Test Yatra? It's the largest independent testing company in the world, based out of Bangalore. Right?
Test Yatra.
Yeah, Test Yatra. And now they have a fairly large, I think they've hired about 50, 60, 80 people in London, and they have these, they already are very large globally, but they wanted a large presence in London. We have these two beautiful founders from a company called Ad Astra, these two sisters that are leading this recruitment in tech firm, and they have a now sales office out of London, right? So we have these beautiful cases on how sales is where they see London to start off with. Of course, it's very different for large corporates, right? we're in talks with the likes of Emphasis or Tata
Mhm.
Elxsi, and they want to scale. They want to do government contracts. They want different things. So we pull in the mayor's support because the mayor leads on Transport for London and multiple other things other than the head of London and Partners as well. So we pull in that government support when needed for these large corporates also.
Yeah, I remember when I started my career at Wipro in the early 2000s, we used to have an office in Reading, and all the IT services companies were just kind of setting up. I mean, I think they've been around from the mid 90s, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
the likes of Infosys and Wipro and HCL. And they've all used, if I'm not mistaken, I still have a lot of friends who are in IT services at very senior levels. They've all used London as a launch pad into Europe. So they set up in London. They would have sometimes they would have back end teams also outside of London from a cost point of view, but then they would send people out on trips in different European cities. And then once you have enough business coming out of that particular country, have a local team. So they've always used London as sort of a regional hub, from at least from an IT services standpoint.
Yeah, it's amazing you said that, over the course of the last 2-3 years, and because we talked about 200 companies a year, yeah. So we're
Mhm.
constantly, talking to guys, we have our ears on the ground, and over the course of the last 2-3 years, we had more and more companies telling us that we want a London presence so we can enter the Middle East and Africa.
Mhm.
Right? That to me was very interesting because apparently holding the name London HQ or a
Sure.
European HQ
Right, right.
immense value when you're trying to enter the Middle Eastern / African markets, right? So there were a lot of them that did this angle to get into these markets. Europe is definitely, they call London the gateway of Europe, and so coming to your point, yes, but that has predominantly always been
Been
the
the case,
case.
yeah.
That you do London for a European access, but these two took me by surprise, and then of course we heard so much of it that we decided that we should even look at this triangle, Sandeep, which is why we met in Dubai with the deputy mayor, right? So the London mayor's office now sees the value in having us cater to the Middle East and explore a three-way triangle. So Indian companies using the Middle East as a launch pad to then go to the UK and vice
Vice
versa.
versa.
And it'll be interesting to see how that works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Just
So
one question.
I've been noticing as well, because I have a lot of buddies from business school who are,
Mhm.
and some of them are entrepreneurs, is that there's a lot of this, the diversity play that's happening. And I see London being a forefront of that, especially. So you have the whole London Tech Week, but I see a lot of communities with women driving businesses, women entrepreneurship. I see that, of course, it's happening in India as well. But I think in London, I mean, of course, there is in the Bay Area because I've friends there for the last 10, 15 years. But London also has got a lot of these communities where they're encouraging women to kind of either ones who have dropped out of the workforce, want to start a business on their own, or people who are serial entrepreneurs helping other women entrepreneurs to set up. There's a lot of that activity happening as well, which is very, very encouraging to see.
Yes, good point. It's a point very close to my heart. Sandeep's like, yeah, why didn't you mention this before? But funny story, 2018 or 17, I think, when Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, came to Bombay, he was at BKC, and he was supposed to be on a panel, and I think he was supposed to be interviewed by one of our prominent personalities, TV personalities, and she didn't show, or she couldn't show, and he refused to get interviewed by a male. He said, if he does a panel, he wants equal number of women representing it.
Wow.
And that's just not in words, right? My SLT, my senior leadership team, has 5 out of 6 women MDs. My CEO is a woman. The India team has 60% women. So it's trickling down. And yes, we do a lot of work. My MD, Janet Coyle, who's also, awarded a CBE and rated top 50 women in tech in the UK, does a lot of delegations, specially and specifically for Black founders or underrepresented founders. And she started in
Mhm.
India in December with this large, beautiful fintech delegation. And every time she comes, we try and put in a female roundtable, right? It's a very underrepresented sector in India.
Right.
It's so hard
Yeah.
to find women in tech or founders in tech, so I'm constantly on the lookout of women. So if there are any women watching this, man, please definitely get in touch with us, because we definitely want to see more of you, right? And we try and bump them up as much as we can. Tomorrow we are doing women in tech roundtable, so a power breakfast, women in tech tomorrow morning.
Nice. No, because I've seen, chatter and what's happening and friends talking about it. I see it's like it's a lot easier to set up a business. There is a support infrastructure pretty much there in London available for women founders. But yeah, I know the number of women in tech and the number of women in venture capital are absolutely low, and that's probably
Right.
have to change.
But interesting you said that, Sandeep. So in the last 2-3 years, I wanted to ask you, have you not seen that number go up? And if you have, what do you attribute that to?
I think the numbers have definitely gone up. I don't know the data in terms of how much they've gone up in the different parts. Attribution is to multiple things. One is on media, be it main media, online, offline, or be it in startup news, there's enough encouraging stories being pushed out of teams which have women. And they've gone on to raise successful rounds of capital or have sold their businesses. So there's enough momentum. So that's one. Second is, I think, especially in a place like India, the social stigma of entrepreneurship is definitely coming down drastically. Because I remember, I mean, when all of us were in school or in college, there was no way you could drop out and start a business. I mean, the first question you ask is, "Pagal ho gaye kya?" Right, pretty much.
Right.
So that has changed. And today, I think women are feeling empowered enough to say that, hey, the cost of starting up, the cost of failure has become a lot lower than what it is before. So why don't I try something? That's the second part. The third part is I'm seeing a lot of women in the D2C space, be it in skincare, be it in fashion, etc. So today it's easy to build a business out of a passion, and you have a key eye for detail, because the remaining parts of the business, be it payment, fulfillment, all of that stacks and blocks are already built. So it's easy for somebody to actually take a product or productize something and sell it,
Yeah.
right? So, Pushkar, what are your thoughts? I mean, you
Exactly.
talk to a lot more founders than I do on a regular basis.
No, but I was going to say the same, what you said. It has never been easier or cheaper to do a startup than it is right now. And also, I think on the women front, because now a lot of Indian women are seeing women role models. I think that is critical. You need to know people whom you can relate to, whom you think, all right, if this woman did it or this girl did it, so can I. I think that has changed over the last 5 years. But as you said, Divya, I think the numbers are still very low. I would say in single digits. If you look at startup founders, more than 90% are men. I think
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe 5,
there
6,
was
7% are women.
obviously there was a Kiran Majumdar show, but the Nika is an example.
Yeah.
Right.
Mama is an example. So we're going to see a lot more of those, you know.
Yeah, Nika is a
And
great.
then bring it
Nika,
down to these sectors, right? Women in fintech, man,
Yeah.
single-handed, or women in, AI, or it's just, yeah. So you say women in tech, and then you see we have some numbers to show, right?
yeah, but it will change, I think. But I was just wondering, like, say if there's a founder sitting in India and he or she wants to move to London. Now, what is the most difficult part of setting up an office? Like, is it, I know the process is quite easy, but would you tell us about these 3, 4 things that, hey, these are 3, 4 things you should be careful about? Here you can go wrong.
Right.
Anything that,
Right. So, Pushkar, our main job is barrier removal, right?
Hmm,
And well, it's easy to say, and I can name top 4 things, and I can say visas, right?
okay.
Or I can say cost of operations in London,
Hmm.
or I can say, finding office space or finding talent. But our job is barrier removal, right? So if a company is, say, struggling with visas or getting employees to move, we'll see that they get issued a support letter, right? That says we know them, we're working with them. reconsider this visa request and see that the founder moves, right? We have a partner team in place in London that will help them connect with universities, plug them into talent. AI is the buzzword. Everybody's talking AI nowadays. We have a collaboration with the Alan Turing Institute, right? A lot of talent in from there for AI companies looking to expand. On the creative side, a lot of the content, a very large Indian creative companies is being made and conceptualized in London. So talents, it's huge strength. Everything else, we remove barriers if we know, and everyone's case is different, right? The first step would be if someone is exploring looking global, not at London. I'm so and so company, this is what I'm doing. I'd like to explore if global aspirations are in the cards for me. Come talk to us, right? We have a very nice research team. We'll assess what you do. We'll share data of multiple countries across the world, cost of operations, fundraising, living, things like that.
Mhm.
Then you can make an informed decision. And if you zero in on UK and London, then we can have more in-depth teams, right? We'll also connect them to sector experts. I have very large, beautiful teams in 5 predominant sectors, right? Sustainability is huge. The mayor's agenda for 2030, net zero. These are big things that London is trying to do, right? One of the largest battery tech and battery on the go
EV, yeah.
technologies and EV is in London, right? One very interesting Pune-based company cracked a deal with the government and put air purifiers on London buses, right? So
Wow.
sustainability is huge for us. Creative companies is huge. Life sciences and all the R&D work that's going on life sciences is huge. And of course, financial services.
Fintech.
We are known as the mother of fintech as London. And then your SaaS software, AI. These are the 5 predominant sectors that we talk to founders in all the time. So come talk to us. We'll assess where you're at. I'll get you support from London end, and hopefully we can work together. If there's a founder here that wants to just explore, right? We
Mhm.
founders of London Tech Week, London and Partners founded it. London Tech Week then became this mammoth event, so we had to outsource the license to an event company. Informa now runs it for us, but we still have the tickets, and we still got them for about 265 plus
Last
founders
month.
last year. We took a delegation that large, go explore the market. We set up some fringe events. The fintech stayed on for the fintech week that happened after, right? So we got them to engage with the ecosystem and make their own informed decision.
Wow. Because there was a similar question by Brijesh. I'll just take it. That is it possible for a company like who don't have an office right now in the UK? Like, can they partner with UK companies? Like, because like you said, most people are still not sure, like whether they want to move to London or not move to London. So what would you advise him? Like, is it possible to partner with customers in UK, or first you should open an office and then think about moving to UK?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and we keep getting this question. UK very much like India is relationship driven, right? I, as a customer, would much likely to close a deal with Sandeep because he's sitting in the room, then with Pushkar because he's sitting. You know how it is. It's
I'm
as
sorry,
simple.
Pushkar.
It's as simple as that. Having said that, there have been some success stories, and if I have to give you a quick tip to make it easier, Brijesh, look at all our channels. Look at the UK government's LinkedIn channels. Look at mine. Look at London and Partners. We constantly bring incoming delegations because let's not forget, when I started, I said yes, we take a lot of companies to London, but we also bring London companies in, right? So I'm getting some 15 odd companies in December for fintech. The UK government brings these companies in 4 or 5 times a year as well. You can interact with them here and see if you can crack any business, right? And every time they come, they go back cracking some business or some deal
Yeah.
or something. Always, I'm yet to see a
That happened in
delegation.
Dubai as well, right?
That happened in Dubai, right?
Yeah.
So Dubai was interesting, Pushkar, because we are taking up this 3 country remit. We took about 20 plus companies from UK and then 20 plus from India, and we joined them in this co-delegation to the Middle East, right? It was headed by the deputy mayor of London, who's just taken over, Howard Dabur. and that's quite interesting. So you can meet them here and explore it, and if not, come with us to London Tech Week.
Yeah, I think that's also a great plan. But how do people get to attend these events? Like, are they open to all? You have to do an application, like especially the ones you do in London. How do people apply for that?
So it is usually open to all, right?
Okay.
It's a tech week, so we want tech for sure.
Of
You could
course.
be early stage, you could be growth stage, doesn't matter. Reach out to us, tell us I'd like to explore London, and we will share whatever deals we get from the city in French events with you. Last year, one of the flagships, so the Indian Embassy in London and the High Commissioner hosted us at the iconic Indian Embassy, and about 50, 60 businesses were there. And it was really nice. So once you see such a large delegation from India, a lot of partners then get very excited and say, okay, let's meet them, let's see what they want. So it was really nice. It was Tech Week, and then it was infringing all these beautiful other events that the companies got to attend, including London Stock Exchange and so on and so forth. Right?
So Brajesh, the other point I have for you is, I think it depends. It's a very easy way of saying it, but if your business is potentially in the enterprise space, then you would need to have either a partner or have a London office to do business. For example, if you intend to sell to, say, HSBC or a Lloyd's or somebody like that, then there's a certain amount of gestation period. You need to have an office, you need to dedicate that amount of time to get a kind of deal in. If you are more in mid-market SaaS, then it's potentially easy for you to do that whole process online. And once you get critical mass, you might need to have a pre-sales or a sales team in London. So you don't necessarily need to put the cart in front of the horse. You just figure out a way, because companies have done that, right? Like, for example, take a look at Freshdesk or ChargeBee. A lot of these guys, necessarily, even the guys who've raised a lot of capital, they have to be very efficient in usage of capital. So you look at these hotspots in the world where you're getting traction. Are you able to really articulate value which is specific to that particular region, see traction, and then build an office there? And other example I can give you is probably 2005, LinkedIn didn't have an office anywhere in the world outside of Silicon Valley. And this is going live on LinkedIn, but then LinkedIn's first office was in London.
Yeah.
And then they had an office in India, in Australia.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes consumer internet, mid-market SaaS, you got to figure out if you've got critical mass in that particular market and you're getting that in-market PMF right, and then you invest in a particular local office.
Yeah. Very nice views coming from, the VC background that you come from. Yeah, true. He's right. You have to figure out your product and see if there is a use case for it. But we constantly tell our companies, it is relationship driven. Put a salesperson there, right? If you want to sell there, utilize the fact that there are 260 banks there. We have the financial
crazy.
authority that we work with. There's a beautiful sandbox, right? Interact, play, come, talk to us, put a team there, right? Don't waste resources trying to sell from here. You might as well go all in for 6 months and assess the situation,
Right.
right? As opposed to doing this half play for the next 2 years.
So Divya, Kamal has a question, and I was also thinking something similar. So in your opinion, what's the right stage for an Indian tech company to move to London? Is it like once they have raised $5-10 million, they have any filters do you have? Would you suggest like, hey, you have $1 million revenue, then you should move to London, or whatever, $5 million revenue? Anything on those lines?
No, it's a very good question, and I won't have a number as an answer.
Right.
Simply because I have seen really small 1-2 people companies that have set up in London because they had some funding and they had a product that worked, right? And I have seen large corporates struggle with funding, right? So it's product dependent. Point one. Early stage startups have succeeded in setting up in London. there are support systems for early stage startups to explore those ecosystems. They're the likes of T Hubs, the likes of what IIM is doing with their incubator hubs.
NSCRL.
NSCRL, they send, and we work with all these people regularly. So as a part of London Tech Week, T Hub sponsored, I think 5 or 10 startups to go explore the market, right? Of which I think 1 or 2 are in longer conversations to set up. So my suggestion is, if you're early stage, tie up with some of these incubators and accelerators who do this. They'll select you, they'll take you, they'll fund you to explore. And don't do this on your own. You possibly could be burning cash unless you've made a product that is for foreign markets and not for Indian markets. And we see a lot of that too, right?
Got it. So usually at what stage of startups do you guys work with at London Partners? Is it like you also work with tiny startups who are very early stage?
Well, very few. Very few. We converse with all, we'll talk to everyone, we'll assess the situation, and then we'll make a plan. If that plan is even come back after 6 months and,
Right,
let's reassess, we will. There are some early stage guys that are now having some longer conversations with our sector teams back in London. A few connections have been made. They're exploring. They still wanted to power through and explore, and we fully appreciate that. So we've connected them, and they are on that journey to exploration. But I would say definitely like SME growth stage. That's the stage that we see movement in, and of course, they have funding.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
London's not cheap.
Yeah, London. I think that was
Right.
a conversation I had with the deputy mayor as well. But so Pushkar, so my filter has been very simple. My filter has been, I've been introducing Divya and London Partners to companies that have at least $500,000 of revenue or have raised between 1 to 3, $1 to $5 million of capital. So
Okay.
then you have a sort of a GTM outside of India. You got to figure out a playbook. Yeah, so I think $500,000 of revenue or $1 to $3-4 million of capital raise would probably, I think, a decent sweet spot to figure
Got
out a 3-month roadmap to getting to London.
Yeah. Yeah, he's formulated a nice, we do we do this employee strength thing, right? So if you 50 to 100 employees in India, then you can possibly look at a small sales team in London to start off with, right? And then very quickly, so we have some amazing like grow from London programs. This is something that the London based companies or anyone who already has a setup in London should know. So once they set up here, the journey is mapped very beautifully. Once they set up from any international market and they go to London, and they work in London for say a period of a year, and they are showing year-on-year revenue growths of say 20%, they can join our Grow London Global program, which is the companies you saw in Dubai, right? And they can then choose saying, okay, I'd like to now enter the US market, or I'd like to go to China, or I'd like to explore Australia or the Middle East. And our team will then put that program together and bunch them up basis their sector and take them to these global markets. So we don't only help you expand into London, then we very quickly help you expand into other geographies, because we understand London's role as this center point of the world, and people with global aspirations, and why they are there. So we do that as a program really well, and it's awarded one of the best programs in the region for trade, right?
Wow.
So it's called Grow London Global. You should look it up.
So how do these founders get to know about these programs? Your website is the best place, because you run so many programs. So how should they find out about them?
Yeah, I think go to the London and Partners website. Definitely, connect with us on LinkedIn. We keep amplifying it. I think our largest job as countries in another country, right, is to just let people know we are here. So half the time we are just beating the drums for London, because so many people come back and say, we did not know you existed, and that the service was free, and that it was bespoke, and that it's government. So that's what we do most of the time, is just let people know we're here.
Right, because I think most founders would think like it's a really expensive service. They wouldn't know it's free, right? Like you said.
I think some founders still apprehensively talk to me, thinking at the end one big bill is
going to go. Yeah. No, with me, I make it very clear up front. There is going to be a big bill. Be prepared.
With me, I'm constantly telling them there is no bill.
So
Wow.
no, but yeah, I think because there is normally a lot of trepidation when it comes to moving into the international market because there is obviously finding the right people, hiring. Does your product make sense to that particular market, and all of the other admin, sales tax filing, and all of that kind of stuff? But I think that's where kind of Divya and team comes in and says, "Hey, listen, are you ready? Are you not ready?" This is probably the easiest way to go in. And but yeah, the advantage is the ecosystem is definitely there. There's the ample number of high network investors who can write large checks in London. There are VCs. There is the startups that have gone through different stages of growth, as well as the large enterprises, right? So, I mean, that's one Haiti mix. I mean, if even in India, the VCs are in Bangalore, the media houses are in Delhi. So you don't have that challenge.
No.
Here it's all in one central place.
Right. It is the city of UK. But Divya, like Sandeep said, like as a founder now, maybe I'm not very sure that my product would sell in London, or does it make sense for my kind of product, tech product, to move to UK? So your team, do you also advise them on that? That hey guys, for you, maybe it makes sense to go to London. For you, it doesn't make sense. Do you
Oh,
do this kind of advisory?
Absolutely. If we do believe it's not a fit for London, we will tell you. We'll possibly even support you or put you on to other governments that we think can help you.
Okay,
Right.
wow.
So if I don't think it's London centric, or you should be talking to my counterparts in Scotland or Wales, or I will definitely put you onto them. We have country partnerships as well, so uh, no wrong advice as long as they're supported, they don't have a bad experience talking to us. We'll do what is right by the founder absolutely every time.
Right. Because Sandeep, we have seen it quite often, right? Like a lot of smart founders, they are maybe not sure like whether their product will sell in US, UK, China. Like you have been doing this all your life, right? Helping
Yeah,
people sell in
yeah,
Japan,
yeah.
China, Southeast.
So today, what we tend to do is we tend to do an audit. We tend
Okay.
to do an audit in terms of, okay, this is the product, this is where you're at, these are the markets that you want to get into, and these are the channels by which you want to get into those markets. So once you do an audit, it's like a dip test, right? So you're not fully committing, but you're getting enough information to say, hey, this is right, this is wrong, this is maybe. So you're kind of trying to zone down that known unknowns. You're trying to bring that down, right? So that's how you typically want to go through a process to say that, okay, now I know I have 3 channels I have to leverage on. I need one person in the UK. That person should do this, and we need to probably have one co-working space and one registered office, which is probably right now, or probably when you have 20 customers. I don't know. So the problem with a lot of founders is, you and me have known this. When you're first generation founder, you have a lot of balls that you're juggling with, and you're not really. So maybe I just step back here. You're a lot of balls that you're juggling with. Number one, you have a lot of advice coming in from you from a lot of directions,
Yeah.
lot of noise, lot of advice coming to you. So you don't know which is the right advice. And on top of that, if you've raised capital, there's equal pressure on investors to do certain things to get that business moving, right? So sometimes you need to have the conviction of, I'm doing this because I've looked at the data, I've talked to 3 experts, and they say this is recommended. But then I should be still nimble enough to say, hey, something's worked, something's not worked.
Yeah.
I need to course correct.
Yeah. Good point.
Right,
And
right.
investors play such a strong role in dictating, this movement of where your growth acceleration should be, which region.
But sometimes founders don't listen.
Yeah.
that is what is the reality, right? But
Yeah. True.
No, but you are so correct because, in my opinion, I think especially in India, because everyone is an advisor, me included.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to get honest, useful advice. You
Yeah.
might get honest advice, but that might not be useful, or useless advice. So I think yeah, it's very challenging for first-time founders, like Sandeep said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also give you a very sweet, different kind of a story. So I have a set of founders. I've introduced them to Divya. They moved to the UK because unfortunately the visas in the US were really backlogged. So they
Okay.
thought UK would be a good bet. Go there, get residency, apply for the visa for the US from the UK. Now, what's happened 2 years later is that they went to the UK, they set up shop there. They're based out of Manchester, but they do a lot of stuff in London.
Hmm.
They become a Google partner. Google's taking them to a lot of different accounts, and suddenly they're realizing, okay, US is a market, but we need to have a team to sell in the US. But we're comfortable operating out of. I'm talking about big things. We were comfortable operating out of the UK.
Now they don't want to go to the US.
They have to go to the US because I'm an investor, right? They have to make big money. But I'm just saying that the market, they didn't initially think of UK
As a
as
market.
like a big market. They wanted to go after the US because they felt that the US would be the place for them to get the customers who would give them that 100
Right,
to
right.
half a million ARR and the big financing. But they were pleasantly surprised that because they were in the UK, a lot of things were being unlocked and happening.
Yeah. On that, we encourage this US UK synergy also quite actively, right? There is a large flagship event called Silicon Valley comes to the UK, right? Because again, like I said, we understand that it's a global player being London and how we can get our ecosystem to interact with our closest allies being the US. And this event is largely attended by not only London based but Indian based, the US founders there. And London and Partners plays a huge role in promoting that event quite actively. So that's a next stop for big things
Yeah,
for sure.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, so we have one final advice, like say if there's a founder in India planning to at least thinking about exploring UK as a market, setting up a base, like what's the first 1, 2 steps he or she should do? Like what would you say? Do his research first or approach you guys and then check? Like what's the way about?
See, very much like you said, there's everybody's an advisor these days, right? There's so much information online.
Right, right.
What research? Where are you going to start, right? And if you get some data from website A, website B is contradicting it, website C is reversed it completely, right? You have government here. Talk to us. We'll help you assess. We'll share country information. We'll share other countries' information, right? We'll do a data comparison and
Okay.
take the information and assess it for yourself. Come back a year later if you want to have a conversation, that's fine. But get the right information from the source, right? Our biggest partners are the British High Commission or the Department of International Trade, right? So we work with them constantly on projects. So if there is something we want information from then on, or like foreign trade agreements and what it's going to entail, we tap into that constantly and say, this is what we want to know. Let us know on how we can go about getting this info, right? So come talk to us, yeah, for sure. You don't need to be Googling and talking to, 1,000 people.
And the advantage is the UK visa is a lot easier than the US visa.
Right, of course.
Especially now with the waiting timelines.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
US is crazy. What, like, do you have time for one final question? Because Rajat's asking, and I think, so he's just saying, how should he contact you? Because what he's saying is, we have a subscription-based business for aged care and
UK.
can you read it?
It's a very
Yes.
interesting space actually.
Right.
Because the UK does a lot of things in this.
It's a UK priority,
It's a UK
Rajat.
priority, and I've got a friend of mine also in the same space actually.
So should
It's a
Rajat directly contact you on LinkedIn?
priority. Very interesting. I don't know, Rajat, if you're in this space, you'd probably know MedCity, right? MedCity was one of the mayor's development for life sciences offices, very much like London and Partners. And now MedCity sits within London and Partners, right? They are your link into NHS. They are your link into innovation that NHS would possibly, hopefully adopt, right? And the UK government just said aged care is one of their priorities. So yes, please reach out to me and my team on LinkedIn, and we'll get you talking to the MedCity team, and we'll take it from there. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Good. Rajat came just in time, it seems.
Yeah, I know. But because I know this is a priority.
Yeah, it is a priority sector. Yeah, Sandeep knows a lot.
No, because I actually invested in an entrepreneur and she was doing something in the tech space for kids. And then in a different business, she was looking at the elder care space.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's based in the UK.
Sandeep, I think like every founder who's watching this also wants some money, some angel investor. So are you the right guy? Should they just send you the that? Because yeah, you seem like a
I
person.
think I
who
take it
has
one
a
plan at a time, Pushkar. I take it one plan at a time,
Sandeep, but even Pushkar, right?
Premise. No, but yeah, absolutely. See, I think where we add value between me and Pushkar is Pushkar has got in-depth experience running syndicates, raising capital for companies, and I'm not kidding you. His no-nonsense advice on LinkedIn, a lot of people swear by, and I think no-nonsense advice is relevant because that's how you craft a story that will lead you to raise money and that has the different parts that are relevant in that story. And it's not just a valuation, it's end of the day that whole packaging storytelling. That's what Pushkar does. With me, I like to say have a product that's selling or raise a little bit of money and then come and talk to me because that's where my sweet spot is when it comes to internationalization of businesses or doing GTM.
And you can talk to us at the huddle. So we'll be there at the
Oh yeah,
huddle.
we're all going to be there at the huddle.
Yeah.
Three of
Oh, wow.
the huddle in Trivandrum from the 28th to the 30th.
Right, right.
So yeah,
So there is. I don't know, Pushkar, if you're coming down. There's Bangalore Tech Summit, great tech event. Do come. We are going to meet at the huddle for sure. I think
Mhm.
country session at the huddle. There's the Thai Global Summit, and if there are fintechs watching this, there is this incoming delegation first week of December coming to Bangalore. So do engage. You can engage with them in your home turf. Just drop me a line, and I will.
yeah. Pushkar is planning to be in the south from the 28th to probably the 5th to the 6th.
Right, yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, sounds good.
In the
I
southern
like
part of India.
As said, quite a queue for Sandeep's investment
Yeah,
portfolio.
yeah, Sandeep is a superstar.
After this, the queue is going to double.
So which
hope
means
you have
that I
the
have
money.
to get off this podcast and start making money. But hey, Divya, thanks for your time. Thanks for being so candid. I know the kind of work that you and your team does, but I thought it's very important for the larger audience to understand. Constantly, founders are always asking people like me and Pushkar in terms of how to go to market. I think I firmly believe that London is a launch pad. Of course, costs are expensive, but you can use it in the right fashion. Pleasure having you.
Thank you. And thank you, guys. Your podcasts are amazing. It is candid and it's much appreciated because in this day and age, like we highlighted again and again, it's tough to find. So thank you for the work you are doing and thank you for having me.
Many thanks, Divya. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks,
Bye.
Pushkar. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Cheers. Bye bye.